I'm Jackie Gurden. It's June 2013 and today I'm with Jim Keenan and we're going to be talking about some of the early history of the Rimu area and also the development and events that happened in the Hokitika and Westland community over Jim's life. Now Jim, this photo here, your family goes right back to the Royal Mail Hotel in Woodstock and the Rimu area. Tell us how your family got involved in that hotel.
Yes, well, the Keenans lived on the top of the Rimu Hill and they were well known as good horsemen. And my dad was coming down the Rimu Hill as a 13-year-old lad, driving a team of 4 horses on a timber wagon loaded with timber. And I'm not too sure whether it was timber or logs, but it was in that category. And on the top, at the top of the hill, a miner told me this story. He said that when he saw this 13-year-old boy, the boy offered him a ride down the Rimu Hill. And he said he was a bit diffident about accepting the ride because for a 13-year-old boy driving a timber wagon loaded with timber was not his choice of transport. So, but he eventually accepted the ride and hopped aboard and went down the hill. And he was quite amazed with Dad's expertise with these horses. And when he came to the Royal Mail Hotel near the bottom of the hill, he came to the Royal Mail Hotel and he turned to the miner and he said, I'll have my name on over the door of that hotel one day. And the miner says, I said to him, how will you ever get your name over that hotel door? And he says, I'll marry that girl over there. And that was my mother. He married her and they ran the hotel for a long time, from about 1870. It was the hotel was started about 1868 or 69, but we know it was operated from 1870, and they successfully operated that hotel right until after the World War II, when their sons arrived back in about 1945, Mick going to fight in the Pacific against the Japanese and Jim got wounded in Italy. Yeah.
Now Jim, this is a picture of your parents. Now you're saying that your father was a very successful man with dredges and sawmills. Tell us about some of his enterprise that he was involved with.
Yes, well, his enterprise in getting his name over the door was followed by other ventures. For instance, he built a stable of 3 horses and he raced horses very, very successfully. Mr. Stewart of the Camara, president for many, many years, often told me that he, in his view, he had won twice as many races as any other West Coast owner and trainer. He actually bought a gold dredge at Awatuna, the Awatuna gold dredge, and it was a very short time, I think about 3 weeks after I was operating it, it sunk, and he lost a lot of money on that venture. But he had a farm, reputed to be the first farm in Hokitika-Korterangi Valley that milked over 100 cows. and he had that successfully. He had Mr. and Mrs. George Grokett on the farm, and Ernie Schroeder was the single man worker on the farm. There were 3 employed. And he also had a sawmill called the Doughboy Sawmill, formed a company called the Doughboy Sawmilling Company, operated by a monster-sized tractor and belt-driven saw and he operated that under the name of the Doughboy Sawmilling Company for quite a few years and very successful. And I came across one of his invoices, and he was milling Hokitika, white pine, and he was selling it to the Midland Sawmilling Company at 13 shillings 100 super feet. So you'd wonder that he made a profit, but he did. It was quite a successful venture. So he had a hotel, a farm, a gold ridge, successfully raced horses, and it all added up that people accepted him as a fairly astute businessman.
Now, tragically, his life was cut short. Tell us about that.
Well, we were at the hotel, and my brother Mick and I, and probably Dudley before him, had to attend to cutting a lot of wood, because in the hotel my mother cooked on a big wooden stove, and also every room, the ladies' parlour, the men's parlour, the boarders' rooms, there were 4 in the middle of the hotel, were all had fireplaces. So wood was a very important item, and Mick and I used to tease Dad about which said to him, "You're supposed to be a very successful businessman with all these farms and sawmills and whatnot, and here we are with a crosscut saw, laboriously sawing wood." He said, "Well, what do you want? What do you want?" And we said we'd like a motor-driven engine and to driving a belt-driven circular saw, and it would be cutting wood would be a piece of cake. So very next day he had exactly what we wanted, and he had it out in the backyard, and we hadn't had it very long, and he came out and relieved Mick, let him get away to do something else, and he got on one side of the saw bench and I got on the other, and after a while, and not very long after, he said to me, "Here, come on, we'll swap sides." So I went round one side and he went back to where I was, and within about 2 to 3 minutes the belt broke, and the belt joint, a metal joint, hit him on the forehead, and I knew that he was seriously injured, and I raced into Mum and told him that Dad was injured, and she and how he was injured, and she says, "Go and get Mrs. Kelly."
So, Jim, this is an early photo of Hokitika. Tell us what you understand about Hokitika around the 1860s and 70s.
Yes, well, an early historian, Ross Gore, once described the rise of the town of Hokitika as even more sensational and dramatic than that of San Francisco and its gold rush. And there were all sorts of figures quoted, between 30 and 40,000 from nil population in a matter of 12 months to 18 months. And it was... they seemed to have everything. There were bakers and blacksmiths and brewers and builders and jewellers and all sorts of people, and it actually was a busy town from zilch to 1866 and 67. It remained that way with its gold mining until it started to ease off. The easy to win gold was no longer there, and it was further out, gold rush at Kamara, gold rush at Remu and Woodstock, and so on.
It really was what we don't recognise just that growth and those couple of years just going from a very small population up to something like, you know, your 30s and 40,000s. And of course, Jim, the first street was named on the 20th of December in 1864, and Hokitika at the moment is planning its 150-year celebrations, aren't they?
That's right, yes.
Yes.
And I might add that they were talking about the 10th of December when two people, Price and Hudson, set up a store, and 10 days before the streets were marched out, but Historic Places Trust insists that a town is founded when the streets are marked out, the first two streets. So we can't have two different. Is that worth putting?
Perhaps we start the party on the 10th and it goes through to after the 20th.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously
but it will be the 20th because everywhere you read it's the 20th.
Yeah, I know. We look forward to those celebrations too.
Yeah, well.
Now, Jim, this is a photo of soldiers over just after the Battle of Cassino. Now, you were drafted into World War II in 1941. Tell us a little bit about that and about, just very briefly, where you fought and what it was for you.
Yes, well, I went over to Burnham military camp and we did our training there, and then later on the first time I drove an army vehicle, and I drove it up with troops at the back. Up to Marlborough, and was taken to the military camp at Waterloo Racecourse. And after a certain amount of training, I went to Littleton and went up by boat to Wellington, and we hopped aboard the troop ship there, the Miltan. And we went to Egypt via Bombay, and we did some military training there for about 6 weeks, and then we were put onto a troop ship called the Miltan, went through the Suez Canal and across to Italy, and by bus, or army truck at least, I went to a place called Vanafra, and then in no time at all I was fighting in Cassino, and at one stage, in the very early stage in fact, with Arthur Heinemann from Remu, I was required to load 2 donkeys up and take ammunition because they were running short of ammunition up at Mount Torelli, and we had a very narrow escape because the shells were flying in, and we ducked into the edge of a little terrace, and there was a direct hit on one of the donkeys, so that upset things a bit, but we finally got loaded and delivered our supply up the mountain, and I fought then in Cassino, and went on to a place called Archie, and we had a West Coast reunion there, and it was really wonderful. We all had a certain amount of vino, and we were singing West Coast songs, and
that's where this photo was taken, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And after that, we got mobile when the breakthrough happened, and the Poles were the first to break through at Cassino. We went on to Florence, and Major General Sandy Thomas was our commanding officer, and he was sitting on the top of a tank, and I was sitting right behind him. There was 6 of us on a tank, and we went in on tanks to liberate Florence. And there's always been an argument about who were the first into Florence, but both Major General Sandy Thomas and I are certain we were the first 2, and we stand by that. And the General now lives in Australia in Bow Desert, and he communicates with me and I communicate with him, and he came over to our battalion reunion, 2-3 battalion reunion, that we ran in Hokitika in 2001. And when I was wounded up on the Rubicon River, back to Barry for hospital treatment, and put onto a troop ship, the Maunganui, I think it was, and we came back to Wellington. Hokitika doctor was there to meet me on the wharf and had a look at my wound, and I was sent back to Hokitika, and then I was sent up to Hanmer Springs for treatment, and after about 3 to 4 months treatment there, I came home and set to live as a citizen and
back to normal life.
Back to normal life, yes.
So Jim, when you came back from the war, you moved into a career of driving, firstly with trucks and then of course with the taxis. Tell us a wee bit about that.
Yes, well, I didn't want to drive trucks. I had that in mind, but Paddy Coyle helped us out by, we went out and cut a lot of wood on the Ross Road, adjacent to the Ross Road, and because wood was important for our hotel. And then I worked for him for 3 years, and when I was down on the Waitangi-Tuana River putting in a stock bank down there, Mr. Steele came down and said he and his brother would like to have me in as partner for the Gold Band taxis. I went up to Hokitika and looked into the situation and decided to buy them out. So I bought them out, and I got 2 very good partners, Neil and Rip Roberts, and we operated the taxi successfully for 6 years, and then they wanted to get out because they'd had enough of taxi driving, and I bought them out, their share, and continued for another 2 years. And while that was a very busy life, it was very interesting. Met a lot of people and had a lot of interesting experiences. So that was another patch of my life, and I really enjoyed it.
Interesting too, you're here with 5 taxis, and we think about Hokitika today, and there's really just about one, isn't there?
Yes.
It's really been the sort of demise of that industry.
Why I sold it was because I had people coming to me and they say, Jim, this will probably be my last ride with you. And I said, why? Have we haven't given you the good service we should? And oh no, that I'm buying a new car tomorrow. And the economy was lifting, and people were buying cars. And I thought, well, now's the time to get out. And I did. And it gradually declined, so much so that there was a period when Hokitika never had not even one taxi. And now I think it's only got 2. So I did the right thing. A little bit of my dad must have rubbed off onto me.
Now, Jim, the Keenan family is well known in racing circles, and of course here's you down having a bit of a bet today. Let's just talk a little bit about the racing club. The Westland Racing Club is the oldest racing club on the West Coast. Now, Jim, this picture here is the first cup, presented when the club began in 1865, 1866. Tell us a wee bit about the cup and the club and your involvement in Westland racing.
Yes, well, the cup is still held by a family in Waikanae, Wellington, and I phoned them and made them a substantial offer. I was going to give it to the Westland Racing Club because I thought it would be a wonderful souvenir, but they didn't want to part with it. How I became interested in the club is with my dad was a very successful racing owner and a committee member of the Westland Racing Club, and my brother Mick, he also raced very successfully at Hokitika. So I had an approach from past presidents and asking me if I'd like to accept the role of president. And I did this, and the years that I covered were from 1976 to 1993. And I enjoyed it thoroughly, and we had a good run because we had 3 days racing, and in my 17 years we only had one very small loss, made a profit each year. That was because we had 3 days, but later on the racing conference took 2 days off us, one because they thought we were Westport Jockey Club, who hadn't raced for 2 years, and the other one to lift our very low commission up a bit higher to make it reasonably profitable. And I enjoyed those 17 years and raced horses on that track, and in fact with one horse, Finelli, I won a race with my 2 partners, Bruce Beard and Durham Havel, and we won a race each day, and really enjoyed my partnerships. I always raced with some other people. Too expensive to be doing it alone.
Now the club's got an interesting history from when it started. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, yes. First of all, they had a race in 1865, a race meeting on the beach, and then they decided to go to Clapcott's Paddock, which is out in the middle of the Hokitika River, just opposite the Red Lion Hotel in that area, and because it was in the middle of the Hokitika River, and they didn't realise by that time how could have drastic floods, and a flood came along and took the whole of the racetrack and the grandstand. But anyway, they were brave people, and they had another go and set up another track and put another grandstand that would take 300 people, and it too got washed out into the Tasman Sea. So the club wisely then shifted up to higher ground, and in 1884 they went up to where it is now in Dalton Street, and we've raced there ever since very successfully. The only difficulty being that 2 days were taken off us, one because they confused it with Westport Racing Club that hadn't raced for 2 years, and the other one was to give us a better commission to make it viable. So the Western Racing Club has been very, very successful in all other respects.
Jim, this tote building, tell us about that.
Well, I got it was 100 years this year, 1913 to 2013, and 100 years old, and I had applied to the New Zealand Historic Places Trust, of which I'm a life honorary member, and got a Category 1 rating for it, which enabled us to get over 70% of the cost. We had a quote of 191,000 odd, but when I put it to the club rejected the idea, and it's still down on the racecourse as a Category 1 heritage building.